Forget epic speeches and noble deeds. We're talking about royal tantrums, presidential grudge matches, and international pettiness. Here are the wildest times history's most powerful people acted like, well, you can be the judge. 1. Queen Elizabeth I versus Lettice Knollys, late 1500s, England. The Virgin Queen was as famous for her red hair as for her ability to hold a grudge. Her cousin, Lettice Knollys, made the mistake of secretly marrying Elizabeth's longtime favorite, Robert Dudley. Elizabeth went full drama queen. She banished Lettice from court, dramatically called her
that she-wolf,
and refused to speak to her for decades, all because of a boy. Elizabeth ruled a global empire, but couldn't handle her cousin's romantic choices. How regal. 2. The Football War, 1969, El Salvador versus Honduras. Sports fans, this one's for you. In 1969, El Salvador and Honduras played a series of soccer matches to qualify for the World Cup. The games were intense, the fans were intense, and the media poured gasoline on the rivalry. When Honduras beat El Salvador, violence erupted. 3 days later, the countries were at war over soccer. The football war lasted 4 days, caused thousands of casualties, and ended with a ceasefire, but not before proving that sometimes sports fans take things a little too far. 3. Louis XIV versus the tallest heels. 1700s France. Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, was the OG influencer. Big hair, big palace, big shoes. And I mean literally big shoes. Louis was obsessed with being the tallest, both in power and in actual height. He wore red-heeled shoes stacked higher than a triple cheeseburger and passed a law that only he and his favorite people could wear them. If you dared rock red heels at court and weren't in the king's squad, you'd get banished on the spot. The king even had portraits painted from a low angle to look taller. Historians say he was about 5 feet 4 inches, but his ego was at least 7 feet 2 inches. 4. Napoleon's short grudge match, 1804 to 1815, France and Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte, military genius, emperor, and living proof that sometimes the shortest guy in the room has the biggest chip on his shoulder. Napoleon was famously sensitive about his height, even though he wasn't actually that short for his time, about 5 feet 6 inches. But British cartoonists loved drawing him as a tiny, tantrum-throwing man-baby, and he hated it. So what did he do? He banned all satirical cartoons in France. He also invaded half of Europe, possibly just to prove he was a big deal.
We will advance our forces through the northern pass, catching them off guard.
A bold move, General. The terrain is treacherous.
And when he lost at Waterloo, Britain doubled down on the short jokes. To this day, Napoleon complex is psychology code for, dude, chill. 5. The War of the Oaken Bucket, 1325 Italy. Let's set the scene. Medieval Italy. 2 rival city-states, Modena and Bologna, are constantly at each other's throats. Did they fight over land or resources or a royal insult? Nope. They went to war over a wooden bucket. Really? Legend has it a group of Modenese soldiers snuck into Bologna, stole a well bucket, and brought it back home like a trophy. Bologna demanded their bucket back. Modena refused. So naturally, instead of just buying a new bucket at the medieval Home Depot, both cities gathered thousands of troops and fought a bloody battle. The result? Over 2,000 casualties, Bologna humiliated, Modena victorious. Yep, the bucket stayed in Modena. To this day, you can visit Modena's city hall and see the bucket, proudly displayed as a symbol of ultimate pettiness. 6. The Pig War, 1859, USA versus Britain. You know what's more dangerous than 2 global empires? A hungry pig. In 1859, on tiny San Juan Island, between the US and Canada, an American farmer found a British pig rooting in his potato patch. He shot the pig. The British got mad. The Americans got madder. Suddenly, both sides sent troops. Over a dead pig. For months, US and British soldiers stood on opposite sides of the island, glaring at each other, weapons ready, all because of one porky casualty. No shots were fired, except for the original pigicide. Eventually, both sides agreed to chill, and the pig became the most famous bacon in history.
Well, I believe this agreement is beneficial for both sides.
Indeed, a momentous occasion. To peace and prosperity.
7. The Defenestrations of Prague, 1618, Bohemia. Nothing says I beg to differ like throwing your enemy out a window. In 1618, Prague's Protestant nobles were so annoyed with Catholic royal officials, they literally tossed them out a third-story window of Prague Castle. The official survived by landing in a pile of manure, which, honestly, is the best metaphor for medieval politics. And modern politics, for that matter. But I digress. This kicked off the 30 Years' War, one of Europe's bloodiest conflicts, all because people couldn't talk it out like adults. 8. President Andrew Jackson's Cheese Party, 1837 USA. Andrew Jackson, the 7th U.S. president, loved cheese almost as much as he hated his enemies. At his final White House reception, he served a 1,400-pound wheel of cheddar cheese that took 2 years to eat. He invited thousands of people to come chow down, mostly to show off, and in an act of presidential pettiness, to outdo the previous president's cheese party. The cheese was so pungent, the White House reportedly smelled like a dairy farm for months. Talk about leaving a legacy. Jackson wanted to be remembered as the people's president, but mostly he's remembered as the guy who stunk up the White House with cheese. 9. The Great Cat Massacre, 1730s Paris. Printing apprentices were fed up with their bosses, and their bosses pampered cats. So in a fit of petty revenge, the apprentices staged a mock trial for the cats, accused them of witchcraft, and dispatched them in a bizarre protest. It was part labor strike, part weird performance art, and 100% petty. Afterward, the apprentices laughed for weeks while the bosses wondered why the mice had taken over. 10. The Great Emu War, 1932 Australia. In the early 1930s, Australia had a problem: emus, lots of them. These giant, flightless birds were trashing wheat fields by the thousands. So what did the government do? Negotiate? Build a fence? Nope, they sent the army with machine guns. That's right. In 1932, Australia declared war on emus. The soldiers fired thousands of rounds. The emus just ran away, then came back. After weeks of chaos, the army retreated. The emus won. The government lost to birds. And the emus didn't even bother to brag. That's how petty wars work. So there you have it. From cheese feuds to soccer wars, the world's most powerful people have always found ways to act like toddlers, proving that "because I said so" is a universal language. If you love these stories of royal grudges and shenanigans, hit subscribe and join us for more Hidden History Dork, where we celebrate the drama, the weirdness, and the gloriously petty side of the past.